Hey everybody, and welcome to this brand new edition of UC Sports exclusively on UCTV. We thank you for joining us. To my right is Brandon Carney, and I'm Anthony DiBernardo. We hope you had a great spring break. We all had fun, but now it's back to business. And of course, business as usual has been for the women's basketball team as they opened up their NCAA tournament in quest for their record 10th championship. They had some whopping victories, as to no surprise of anyone. Of course, against St. Francis of Brooklyn and of Rutgers.
Yes, and we'll also be talking about the unfortunate disappointment that has been men's basketball this season. Almost got into the tournament, didn't quite get there. So stick around, we'll be right back with UC Sports. And welcome back to UC Sports. I'm now joined by Ivie Hoymoune and Will Richardson to talk about men's basketball. During the AAC tournament, UConn seemed to look the best it had all year. Felt like they were actually going to end up in the tournament with the whole thing being played at the XL Center. Fell short. What happened against SMU that halted the Huskies' hot streak? Ivy, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, anybody who follows the team, they can tell you they often get off to slow starts. And this game in particular, they got off to a huge slow start. They went down 14 at the half. Boatwright didn't score a single point the first half. And ultimately, they couldn't shoot themselves back into the game in the second half. Although they did have a strong run, they got as close as 6. They just couldn't produce enough scoring.
All right, Will?
I think part of the problem was when Boatwright went down with the injury in the first half. I believe he got hit in the face in the first half. And essentially, after Boatwright went down, he was not the same player, and the team wasn't the same without him. They seemed a little bit sluggish, almost like they wanted to lose the game. So I think Boatwright's injury in the first half was kind of the start of the down point. And then in the second half, Purvis just kind of tried to do his own thing, but Boatwright got injured again, got hurt his shoulder, wasn't the same again after that. And I think when Boatwright's not at his highest level, he's just not performing well, and the team doesn't perform well as a result. So SMU just came and beat them in their own home court.
Right. Now you talk about wanting to lose a game. Despite Rodney Purvis saying they have to win the NIT, got bounced in the first round with no Ryan Boatwright, minimal contribution from Amita Brima. With the season over and everything put into perspective, what do you think was the biggest factor that contributed to such a disappointing season?
Well, I think the biggest factor for the disappointing season was the fact that this team just didn't have a consistent second scorer behind Ryan Boatwright. I think that was the ultimate downfall for the team. You have Daniel Hamilton, you have Rodney Purvis. Both of them average double-digit points, but other than that, Amita Brima averages 9. Nobody else averages more than 6. So you're looking at a team that needs one player to do well for everybody else to do well. You can't go deep into March when you're depending so heavily on one player. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was just the lack of enthusiasm in the first half, as Ivy mentioned in the last question. They just got off to slow starts in the first half, and when you have to keep battling back in the second half, you're not going to be able to compete in these games against the really, really good teams like the Tulsas and the SMUs just in the conference alone. So that's what I think.
Ivy, would you agree?
Yeah, totally, I agree. Like I said, if you don't have a second scorer, like Will said, Boatwright can't make every comeback by himself. He needs a second scorer. Sometimes Rodney Purvis was there to help, sometimes not. And I also think that the 3 consecutive losses early in the beginning of the year, that kind of hurt them. You know, they lost to West Virginia. That was kind of ugly. 2 very close but unfortunate losses to Yale and Texas. And that led them to having no momentum into their Duke game. And then ever since then, it's just been one game at a time, fighting for their lives.
All right, now a team obviously led by Ryan Boatwright, you know, just the overall leader both in the locker room, on the court, at the end of games. He's gone next season. We already saw how much they were hurt by losing Shabazz, DeAndre Daniels, Niels Giffey. What do they do next year? Who really has to step up, Ivy?
For me, I mean, it's the captain. It's the other captain, Amita Brima. I mean, being a captain, being a sophomore, having already won a championship, being one of the only 7-footers in the conference, you can't only lead your team in rebounds for 4 games. He needs to step up as a captain, and everybody else will follow. I believe if Brima steps up, everybody will follow.
Right, yeah, definitely really only an anchor on defense right now. Will, who would you say has to step up?
I would say, well, I'll pick 2 people. The 2 people I would like to see step up would be Rodney Purvis and Daniel Hamilton. Just those 2. I think if you can get the offense scoring, it doesn't matter if your defense is bad. Well, it matters if your defense is bad. But if you're scoring more points than the other team, nothing else really matters. So you saw it in the second half against SMU. When Rodney Purvis wanted to step on the gas, he stepped on the gas, and he showed what he came from NC State to do. And Daniel Hamilton, he just showed that he made a lot of freshman mistakes with the turnovers, but he can average a triple-double every game if he cuts down on the turnovers and he does the things that Coach Ollie needs him to do. So those are the two players that I think need to step up more than anybody.
Yeah, a lot of people share your opinion with Daniel Hamilton. They think, possible conference player of the year next year, conference rookie of the year this year. Looked shaky at times, looked really unconfident. I remember being at games and he's open from the three-point line, not taking them.
Exactly.
Crowd's like, what is going on here?
That's right.
So what do you expect from him next season, and what does he mainly have to improve at?
Well, I expect him to move up to that 15-point range. I believe that he can do it. He had 10.9 last year, 10.9 points per game last year. So I think he could do 15. So I think that's the first thing he needs to work on, is being more of a consistent scorer and actually wanting to take those shots, not to be timid to take those shots. But I think the one category he needs to work on is turnovers. He turned the ball over way too much. Him and Boatwright tied the team lead for turnovers. Mm-hmm. And as a freshman, you don't want that reputation of the team needing you and you're turning the ball over. He had too many games with double-digit turnovers. So you cut down the turnovers, you get more points, and you help move the ball around, he's gonna be fun.
Ivy?
Right. Yeah, I mean, in the big picture, I expect him to go down as a UConn great. I think we all believe, once he feels comfortable pulling the trigger, we know he can hit the big shots. I mean, he falls into a lot of scoring droughts. He gets unconfident with the ball, but he has all this skill. It's just on him to improve, his mental stability, and he'll go down as a great in the end.
Yep. Now, beyond the current roster, UConn's recruiting class is looking good. 2 4-star recruits have already committed. Point guard Jalen Adams and Connecticut Gatorade Player of the Year, power forward Stephen Enoch, stands at 6'10", should be a solid post player next year. What kind of impact do you expect these guys to make going forward? Ivy, talk about Jalen.
I mean, Jalen Adams, he's a strong combo guard. This year, for his senior year, he transferred to prep school, which shows a lot of initiative in the fact that he wants to play against better competition. I mean, he's a great shooter. I mean, what he wanted to work on before even coming to UConn next year was his passing and his playmaking ability. And, I mean, UConn has a strong history of giving their freshmen a lot of action, a huge workload. So then by the time they become juniors and seniors, you can have Kembas and Shabazes and Ryans. So, I mean, I can't wait for that.
Right. Now, Will, what do you think about Enoch?
I think Enoch has all the makings to be the next UConn big. You see Emeka Okafor, Hasheem Thabit, even DeAndre Daniels. I think he could be in that upper echelon of bigs. He averages 15 and 11 over the past season, 15 points, 11 rebounds. Mm-hmm. And when you look at those numbers in high school, that's already impressive. Add to the fact that he's State Player of the Year by Gatorade, and you have a player that has all the tools that he needs to essentially become one of the best big men that Connecticut has had. He's strong, he's versatile, he can shoot from anywhere inside the 2-point line, inside the 3-point line, So he has all the tools that UConn needs, because one of the things that they need is a big man. And Amita Brahma's big, Phil Nolan's big, you have Kent Vasey and Rakim Lubin, but you need a big man that can actually score on plays that aren't just dunks or aren't just layups. So if you have a big man that can shoot and stretch the floor, it makes it a lot easier for players like Jalen Adams or Daniel Hamilton to do exactly what they do best, which is to score. Right. So having the big man is going to help this team solidify, do everything they need to do to get back to the tournament.
Right. You look at Enoch, similar body type to Brima, but very, very different player. Better grasp of the game overall, better rebounder, better shooter. Mm-hmm. So both of those guys should definitely be a big help next year. Now we transition over to women's basketball. We had a few guys at the first 2 games of the NCAA tournament. Here's what they had to say.
I'm Josh Malboeuf for UCTV. First round tournament action for the UConn Huskies as they took on the St. Francis Terriers from Brooklyn. UConn ended up winning the game 89-33. They really dominated in all aspects of the game. They shot 70% from the field and had 68 points in the paint. Morgan Tuck had a great game, was 12 for 13 from the field and had 26 points. The Huskies really dominated on the defensive end as well, as Kia Stokes had 6 blocks. And we had a chance to catch up with Coach Gino Ariyama, players Mariah Jefferson and Morgan Tuck. Let's hear what they had to say.
Well, I think the way the game started out, the way Morgan kind of got us going, and that combination of what Morgan was doing in the lane and what Kia Nurse started the game off doing. I mean, that's exactly the way you want to start any game, but especially an NCAA tournament game where, you're able to score inside and outside. And then I thought, we just played really, really well. When we shoot the ball the way we shot it tonight, it's hard to play against us, obviously.
It was pretty hard sitting out watching, pretty much just being a cheerleader. But, it means a lot to actually be out there and actually helping my teammates. I think that was the hardest thing, was not being able to help them. We weren't really deep last year, and, now to be able to be out there and contribute means a lot.
Morgan was a beast, like always. She makes it really easy as a point guard just to dump it in. We know she's going to knock down those layups and even step out on the outside and knock in threes. So not even that, she had, 8 assists. So she was passing the ball well. She was making shots, so she played great.
Yeah, I've been rooting for Morgan since the day she got here. It was unfortunate what happened last year, and we got lucky, to be honest. We got lucky during the tournament that nothing happened, and that her not playing didn't cost us.
Do you remember having another game like this, in your career? It was pretty spectacular numbers.
No, I don't think so. Not that I can remember that, where I really didn't miss that many layups and stuff. So, it was just nice to not really miss much today.
Coming out today, NCAA tournament game. Fortunately, didn't get to play in it last year. What was it like for you to finally have this experience?
It was great, just to be out there playing. Last year sucked just sitting on the bench, so it's definitely a lot better to be out there.
Oh, definitely. All right, I got to ask you a quick question. Is Uno the team secret to their success? Is that your go-to game or something?
Yeah, we play it during the tournament,
Do you really?
during media time.
Nice.
So yeah, we play it every year. So
Is
maybe
it
that
just
is.
a playoff thing?
Yeah, we'll play it every now and then, if we're in the airport or just bored or something. But we definitely play it every NCAA tournament.
I'm here with Brianna Stewart. Great game tonight. What can you and your team take away from a win like this and move forward to the next game?
I think, one of the things we can take away is just the fact that, we were running our offense really well and getting whatever shot we want. And, if we do that with any team, we should be able to get whatever shot we want.
Definitely. Do you think there's anything you can work on?
I think we can always work on our defense and keep, get better at defense. And, I think we did a great job on St. Francis tonight, but still there's, if you look at the film or something like that, there's going to be something we can pick out that we need to be better at.
The Huskies advance to the round of 32 where they will take on Rutgers on Monday night. I'm Josh Malboeuf for UCTV.
Cam DeBrusk here for UC Sports. After the game in the round of 32, where the UConn Huskies just defeated the Rutgers Scarlet Knights by a score of 91-55. The story of the game was UConn's efficient scoring, shooting over 45% from 2 and from 3. And the leader on the team, scoring-wise, for the Huskies was Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis with 23 points and 4 assists. We got a chance after the game to catch up with Gino and KML, so let's hear what they have to say.
I told the players in the locker room that, what we did in the game today was pretty impressive when you consider how the game was played, and that Stewie only played 4 minutes in the first half, and it looked like we didn't really miss a beat. I was just really proud of the way we handled ourselves.
Just trying to tell everybody to keep their head, make sure that we're focused every time we step on the court. As much as we want to make sure that this is a kind of a business thing, we want to make sure that we're having fun at the same time.
The UConn Huskies have advanced to the Sweet 16, where they'll play the Texas Longhorns this weekend in Albany, New York. I'm Cam DeBrusk, here for UCTV.
Welcome back to UC Sports. I'm now joined by Josh Malboeuf, Cam DeBrusk. We're going to talk a little women's basketball. They opened up the NCAA tournament. They're the #1 overall seed. Quest for that 10th championship looks pretty much like a lock. And if you don't believe me, you can just check the games that they had over the weekend. That first one being against St. Francis. The final score was 89-33. Josh, tell us what happened in that game.
Well, basically, St. Francis was a Cinderella story coming into this tournament game. They had to win 3 road games in their conference championship, and then they won the conference championship. And UConn really came out, hit a couple threes early. St. Francis hit a few threes of their own, but then UConn really dominated with their post play. Morgan Tuck had a great game. She was really the catalyst for UConn. She outscored St. Francis 20-14 in the first half.
Oh my!
And UConn had 68 points in the paint, in the entire game. That pretty much sums up the entire game. And in the end, UConn pulls out a victory, rolls over St. Francis.
St. Francis being the lowest of the low, the worst 16 seed in the tournament. You mentioned Morgantock had a terrific game. She led all scores with 26 points. Cam, on Monday, they played Rutgers University, the former Big East rival. And how did that go for the Scarlet Knights?
Well, it didn't go good. That's for sure.
Well, better for you.
UConn was favored by 31 points, and they ended up winning 91-55. So they're still able to beat that spread, even if it is 30 points. The X factor for UConn was definitely Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis from 3. She had 23 points, but she also had 4 assists. She played excellent the whole game, offensively and defensively. UConn also led the rebounding battle 53-30, which is absolutely dominating. They controlled the paint on both sides. They controlled the guard play. They controlled play on the wings. They had complete control of the whole game the entire way through.
Yeah, and you mentioned Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis. She has had a terrific season, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. Now, Josh, we've talked about UConn over and over and over again. They are clearly the favorite to win it all again this year. They're the best team in all of college, almost college sports. I mean, short of only Kentucky, but, UConn beat them last time, so we'll take that one. But they're clearly the favorite to win, but who's going to give them the toughest matchup going ahead in this tournament? Is it going to be at that championship game? Is it going to be the Final Four? Maybe even in their region? Who's going to be that toughest opponent for UConn in their quest for that 10th championship?
I'm going to say that South Carolina is going to be their toughest test. I believe South Carolina squeaks into the final, and they'll give the Huskies a run for their money maybe, but really it's going to come down to UConn's front court. Basically, South Carolina is going to have to get UConn's front court in a lot of foul trouble, but even then, we saw last night, Brianna Stewart played a total of 5 minutes in the first half, and UConn was still able to hold their own and even build a lead. So it's going to be very tough. They'll have to attack players like Morgan Tuck, but they can definitely compete because they have players like Asia Wilson coming off the bench and Welch. So it could be a good game, but I still take the Huskies.
Obviously, I think we would all take the Huskies, but you mentioned, obviously, South Carolina. They were the #1 overall team in the country for most of the season once UConn went down after that upset loss in Stanford. And then, of course, South Carolina was undefeated until they faced UConn. UConn obviously hoping for the same result if they see the Gamecocks again. Now, Cam, we've obviously talked about the team as a whole, UConn being the best team, one of the great dynasties in college sports. What are some of those underlying stories that we're really not talking about in this tournament?
Right now, it's definitely Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis. She's 7 3-pointers away from breaking the all-time women's 3-point record in NCAA history, which is 392. It's incredible. She's shooting 50% this year from the 3-point arc. And, I mean, normally, if a player is shooting 35%, that's very good. If a player is shooting 30%, they can just go ahead and take any open 3 they want. But 50% is just unheard of. She has 109 3-pointers already this year, and don't forget that she missed half of the season last year. So if she had played a full season, I can't even imagine how many 3-pointers she would have hit so far in her career.
109 threes in a season. They've played 30-something games. That's unheard of.
Yeah,
she
it's
truly
incredible.
is a special player. But stick around. There'll be more UC Sports when we come back. Welcome back to UC Sports. We're pretty much about done with our show today. But first, before we go, we're going to talk a little bit about March Madness, the NCAA tournament. We're going to talk about mostly what we think is going to happen. Just before we start, none of this is what UCTV believes. This does not reflect their views, their beliefs in any way. This is our opinions.
It's all us.
All us, what we believe will happen in March Madness, not affiliated with the views or beliefs of UCTV. Now, Brandon.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you, well, first, the big obvious question is, how's your bracket doing?
My bracket's actually pretty good. Final
good.
Four still all good.
Who do you got to win it all?
I personally have Wisconsin to win it all, but right now their road's looking kind of tough, I will say. Yeah. So I'm going to go back on that. If I could redo my bracket, I would probably say Duke's going to win it all. Their road to the championship seems very easy because I'm not a Gonzaga believer. I'm not a believer in anyone coming out of the East region, whether it be Oklahoma, Louisville, whoever it may be.
That's obviously they're going to stop at Duke. But
so,
there's that undefeated team.
There is that
the
undefeated
SEC
team.
Coach Calipari, those boys, the Kentucky Wildcats. They have a pretty easy cakewalk, not only to the Final Four, but really their big test will be in the Final Four, whether they face Wisconsin or Arizona or maybe a smaller team like a Cinderella. I don't know, but that'll be their toughest opponent.
Yeah,
maybe Notre Dame will give them a run for their money, but they got to march to the Final Four.
I wouldn't say cakewalk, personally. They're going to play West Virginia coming up. I think that'll be a good game. Kentucky is going to win it, I believe, at least. Then they're going to play Wichita State or Notre Dame. Another good run for their money. Then they're going to play probably either Wisconsin or Arizona, another really good team, and then probably, at least in my opinion, have to beat Duke. So I think they would have benefited from a loss earlier in the season.
Definitely.
Because they would know how to win close games against good teams. They're winning close games against Ole Miss, Texas A&M, whoever else they played.
Their biggest test was definitely against Arkansas, who was nationally ranked. They went into Arkansas because they are in the same conference. And late in that second half, they just pulled away.
Right.
So that's really been their biggest test. I still think Kentucky is the favorite.
They are. They definitely are. They're undefeated. Of course, they're the favorite.
I strictly just believe that it's just silly that people talk about these. It's just every one seed's going to win. There's going to be no upsets. What's the phrase that they usually use? It's a chalk.
Yeah.
It's a chalk year. Like, what is that? What honestly is a chalk year? Like, you think every one seed's going to win every single year? Like, can we just get realistic for once? Every single person that fills out a bracket thinks, I'm just going to pick all ones to make the Final Four. And guess what?
Never
every
happens.
year, there's not all 4 one seeds. I think the last time all 4 one seeds made to the finals, it's been like 20 years. Maybe 30. I don't even remember the last time.
It's been a while.
Certainly has not happened in my lifetime. There's always a Cinderella team. There's not just a 1 or a 2 seed. And let's be honest here. If you had Villanova getting to the Final Four, you should be ashamed of yourself, and you're probably somebody that didn't care about filling out a bracket, and you just thought, you know what, this looks really easy. It's not easy.
Obama.
Yeah. Our president had Villanova. Our president had Villanova in the championship game. Had them beating Duke. What is wrong with you? We elected this man.
I bet Jeb Bush makes better brackets.
To lead our country. Bro, you picked a Big East team? Newsflash, the Big East hasn't been good since Kemba Walker left. Sorry, just thought I would let you know that. But you still had Villanova making it to the finals. Honestly, I had Villanova losing in the first weekend. I wasn't wrong. I also had Villanova losing to UConn last year. I wasn't wrong about that either. I also had UConn winning it all. Needless to say, I think I know more than you do.
Ouch.
Ouch.
Taking shots at the president over here? I mean, I started it, but...
I think I am taking shots at the Cam Radio 12. Maybe I should run for president. Maybe I should.
I mean, your brackets would be better.
Maybe. Definitely.
They would be. They would be.
Significantly better. All right, well, that wraps it up for this week's UC Sports. For Brandon Carney, I'm Anthony DiBernardo. We'll see you guys next week. Good night.